Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, June 19th. Jim Coyle with you as always. John, the producer, back in his chair as well. Appreciate everybody. Took a few days off. Welcome back, of course, to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios mobile unit, brought to you by Logos and Promotions. This week, if you have any needs for embroidery or professional work of that nature, Logos and Promotions can help you out. But welcome back, John Boy.
I am glad to be back. Very refreshing week off for me.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. We missed you and ended up taking 3 days off as well, just to reset this table, baby.
Sometimes it's good to reset, especially during the summer months.
Telling you. Lots going on to talk about today. Looking forward to it. Alec Busse will be on the program. We'll get you caught up on Indiana recruiting, what's going on, people going here and there, visits, commitments by certain people to other schools, how that impacts Indiana. We'll talk about that. Let's see. Thoughts on that? I have some thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals, which is already over, but something I noticed. Bob Huggins, of course, Joey Hart committing to Kentucky, and Dick Vitale recommending Tom Crean for the West Virginia job that Bob Huggins has vacated. So we've got plenty to get to on the program today. Before I forget, for those up in Fort Wayne, if you're listening to Brett Rump, and you should be, he's got tickets to see the Doobie Brothers coming up. So make sure you check that out. Check Brett out, but you should be listening every day. It's right after us. So there's no reason to change. No flipping. How's everybody doing? How are you doing, John Boy? I see a lot of people jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline already. Appreciate everybody. Those that are listening via the YouTube, as Dave Leverin would always say. The kids love it. Appreciate everybody. Heath, Scott, Fred, the Easton Assassin from Pennsylvania, Andrew, John, appreciate you as well. Gritty Jennifer, Chris, I want to make sure I get them all in there. Heath, down in Danville, Kentucky. Appreciate you guys. Mike, Flory Badunga turns down a visit to UK. Very nice. Down to Duke and Indiana, and I think that I was the first to report that, actually. But Joey Hart commits to Kentucky, and I think that just came to, and this is just my guess, I'll talk more about this with Alec, but on a guess, I'm just going to say that he was either tired of waiting from Indiana, because I think Indiana is still holding out. Maybe, I don't know that to be fact, but he committed to Kentucky on Saturday. So congratulations to him on finding a spot, and hope that works out for him. But it's been so many visits last week alone. And oddly enough, with Joey Hart committing to Kentucky, we'll talk to Alec about this, like I said, but Antonio Reeves from Kentucky was rumored to be interested in entering the transfer portal. That was reported by Jeff Goodman. He's taking classes at another school already, Illinois State, which is where he began his college career. but he's a potential addition. He scored over 14 points a game, shot just under 40% from beyond the arc in about 6 attempts per game. And Indiana needs exactly that. Someone who's going to put up 6 threes a game. So we'll talk more about that later, but wouldn't that be just the irony? How ironic would that? An Indiana kid that is from just outside of Bloomington ends up going to Kentucky, and a Kentucky transfer come to Indiana. That would be just kind of funny. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the recruits. Like I said, the visits, there were so many. Woody watched Austin Schwartz over the weekend. This is it's a live period for coaches, but they can't. These are for only high school sanctioned events. No, this is not for the AAU's business that you see out there. So we'll talk to Alec about Boogie Flan, Tyler Betsy, those guys that were in to visit Indiana. What else has been going on with you guys? Whatever you want to talk about. What I was going to talk about in regards, and I want to talk to this with Mike tomorrow, Mike DeCourcy, because it really, really stood out. You know how people have made a deal of the handshake line? Like, they need to do away with that. Blah, 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 blah.
Ever since the situation with Greg Gard and or was it the assistant for Wisconsin, and Juwan Howard?
All right, but I watched the Stanley Cup Finals, the championship game when which, first of all, that was ridiculous to have 12 goals in a damn hockey game, much less a Stanley Cup Finals. 12 goals. That's crazy. That's the most goals they should have scored in the whole damn series. It was 9-3. That was horrible. But what I saw afterwards, and you would think that this would have added to it. But immediately after the game, they win. They're down there celebrating, and I mean for a long time. This goes on. This is the celebration. Probably 10 minutes at least. The other team is still there on the ice. The Florida Panthers and the coaches. Something else I noticed: the coaches don't really get to celebrate with their players immediately. That may be the only sport because they're not out there on the damn ice. The guys are all over the ice, so the coaches, they're not wearing skates. They go out there with them later when it's all calm, but no, that's kind of funny. But my point was, after they watched them celebrate, after they waited for them to celebrate through all that time, there was the handshake line. And they were as civil as they could be. And is there a sport any more rough, any more brutal, any more just getting at it than hockey? I mean, you're literally beating the crap out of each other. Which brings up, I was watching the UFC fight last night. Same thing. These guys are beating the crap out of each other. After the match, the winner had water, and he was sharing his own water with the guy he just beat. And the guy took it and drank it. So my point being is, when we see these actions by these guys, that's childish behavior. That is just complete unprofessional behavior. That is just people that just don't have control of their emotions. Because when I watch these events that are real freaking battles, they're not words jawing. Greg Gard and Howard, they're just jawing each other. They're not going to do anything. Well, Howard tried to, but they're not going to do anything. These guys are out there beating the living, out of each other. And so I just found that fascinating that after that, boom. So I'm like, you know what? Grow up. You grow up, and everybody should be more professional. That's my little pulpit speech for the morning. John's looking all uncomfortable. So,
and now you know the rest of the story, right?
Yes. How about the Reds? I see people popping up about the Reds, baby. Yeah, they've been doing well. What are we at in the standings? I say we. Now they're back to my team, bragging on them. But they're doing so well. And the whole thing, and then Joey Votto, someone said maybe back tonight. That'll be interesting to see how he comes back. But let's see, what are the standings current right now in the National League Central? The Reds, a half game out of first place. What? Get out of here. They're on a heater. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. That is not a National League best, but tied with San Francisco. And Atlanta, Philadelphia also 8-2, but in their last 10. But man, the Reds, are you kidding me? I never ever dreamed I would see them up the standings. They're 3 games over 500, and those eight games out of their last 10, they've won them straight. They've won 8 straight. Let's see. That might be a baseball best. It's a National League best. 8 straight wins. Youth, baby. The youth movement. That's crazy. I can't wait to talk to who's a Reds fan that comes on.
We don't really have any regular Reds fans, do we? Of course he's a Pittsburgh fan. Rick Bowes is a White Sox fan.
Yeah. Somebody's a Reds
fan.
fan.
Kyle Rip's a Detroit fan.
Yeah, somebody's a Reds fan though, and I cannot remember. Yeah, Andrew gonna go check him out. He's gonna go watch him play. Says he's heading up to see him play the Rockies. Break. We've got to take a break. As just reading a question right there. Can anyone name the 7 ways to score from third base with less than 2 outs by Kenneth? We can contemplate that while we head to break. On the way, when we come back, Alec Busse from thehoosier.com. We're going to get you caught up on all things recruiting that have gone on over the last week, which have been many. Stay tuned. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Endeavor Hospitality and their wealth of family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. When you're down for a visit, or if you live there, great places like BB's Market and the Chop Shop, located right next door, a brand new steakhouse. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the Good morning.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
Oh, just enjoyed the weekend. Enjoyed the trip up to Indiana. Enjoyed Father's Day yesterday. Ready to get back to it this week.
Oh yeah, how was your Father's Day, Jimbo? I know your daughter's not around, obviously, at the moment.
Well, we got to talk and hang and for a long time. I called my dad, talked to him as well. And other than that, didn't do much. Just relaxed. I forgot about the Indiana Top 100. How was that?
It was okay. There's basically just 2 major prospects there with
Flory
and Trent Sicily. So, how
that was the first time you got to see Flory, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was the first time I got to see him in person since he's on the Adidas circuit, and I hadn't gone to any Adidas games. I mean, I had seen him online, which was like YouTube clips and things like that, but that was the first time I saw him in person.
I said before you came on in regards to Joey Hart that everything was just a guess on this part, that he got tired of waiting because he was probably being told by Indiana to wait, that they were waiting, and he committed elsewhere. Because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any direct insight into the recruitment, really. I do know that Kentucky was pretty well positioned a couple weeks ago. And I just think, the opportunity that he's like the path to a large opportunity is easier to see at Kentucky, considering, they only have 7-8 guys right now committed to play next season. So his path to getting on the floor is, I think, certainly a little bit easier to see at Kentucky, where as at Indiana, there's older players in front of him and just a deeper rotation of roster already there.
Yeah, but there's no one really in the two spots who they're kind of looking for.
You never know. You might get somebody out of that West Virginia fallout. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of guys jumping in the portal.
That's a great point. That is a great point. What that could do to West Virginia. Didn't think about that.
Here we go, guys.
By Endeavor Hospitality Group, launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewery, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hobbs' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Monday. Happy June 19th. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here. Jim Coyle with you. Alec Busse joins from the Hoosier.com. There has been just a ton going on in the last week, Alec, in regards on the recruiting trail, the IBCA Top 100 over the weekend. But even though there's 100 guys there, there were a few targets to look at specifically. And Flory Badunga, of course, the head of the class, potential number one recruit in next year, along with Trent Sisley was there. But your first look at Flory, and he's a game changer, man.
Yeah, I was really impressed seeing him in person. I mean, everyone kind of talks about the type of potential he has as a player, but to kind of see it in person for the very first time is a little bit tantalizing, especially when you see the potential he has on the defensive side. I feel like a lot of times kids his age and in events like this, where they're just kind of playing pickup with a group of guys that they don't know, they tend to kind of try and force things on the offensive side. I didn't get that sense from Flory Badunga. Instead, I was really impressed by his length and his movement and his commitment to just guarding and protecting the rim on the defensive side. There's certainly some tools on the offensive side that are there. He's got a good left hand around the rim. It's something that he's still developing, though. His dunking ability, I think, is incredible. I had one Big Ten assistant that I was sitting next to describe him as a great dunker, which I thought was kind of funny, got a chuckle out of me. In terms of his shooting ability, that's something that it needs a lot of work. The shot mechanics aren't really there at this point of his development, but he's a good athlete, and I don't think it's ever fair to completely count a kid who's about to be a senior in high school out of being able to add something to his game. And Flory's obviously a very good player, so I think that's something that he can add and really kind of start to refine as he starts to continue to get college interest. He's supposed to start taking an official visit to Duke. I believe tomorrow is when it starts, June 20th.
And the word is that it's basically down to Duke and Indiana for Flory Badunga. He canceled a visit to UK, to Kentucky, and that's something that once Duke got in the mix, people started talking about, well, that was his team that he enjoyed, that he always wanted to play for, which his basketball career has not been that long, but we'll see how that works out. But now it's kind of seeming like it is getting down to those two schools quickly.
Yeah, I think Michigan's also in the mix there a little bit. They hosted him for an official visit pretty recently. And then we know Cincinnati did a really good job of positioning themselves. But yeah, like I said, going to Duke for an official visit this weekend, you kind of added some good context into his personal interest in playing for Duke. And it does seem like Duke is kind of expressing some good interest in him. They had an assistant coach there to watch him this weekend down in Brownsburg. So that was certainly something that was of note to me. There was a lot of coaches that were kind of there watching him and following him around. Auburn was there. Bruce and Stephen Pearl were there. Bill Self from Kansas was there watching him. just about every game. And then obviously Indiana had 2 coaches there watching him at every game too. And it was kind of funny. There was a flock of coaches and a flock of people that just kind of followed Flory Badunga's top 100 team to the different courts inside the Brownsburg High School gym. So like I said, lots of interest, but Duke, Indiana, Michigan, Cincinnati, and it does seem like Kansas is starting to show some good interest in the top 5 national prospect in the 2024 class.
The thing about Flory is he's at max a 2-year college player, I think, with his talent. I'm going to assume, unless something different jumped out. And with that fact, while Duke, if you grow up, so Duke is where I always wanted to go. Well, it's not the same. Mike Krzyzewski's not there, so unless you just want to play for a name, it's not the same Duke that it was. Indiana's not the same Indiana without Bob Knight. It's those guys at that time made magic, and so we'll see if that has an effect. And if he's thinking about the future, well, Mike Woodson is. You want to talk about a tutor for getting to that next level, and all the experience that he has around him, the NBA experience. That would seem to give Indiana a hedge in that direction, but nothing matters in the minds of kids when they're making their decisions from what we're saying. But looking at it from the outside, I would think that Indiana's still in really, really good position for all those things combined.
Yeah, you talked about Duke there a little bit. I agree with the idea there, but I think it's also important to recognize that Duke still kind of has this mystique around it, and it has a coolness factor to high school recruits that I think it's kind of hard to deny. And then I think John Shire has done a really good job recruiting in his time as an assistant under Coach K. And then even now taking over as the head coach. I mean, if you look at some of the kids that he was the lead on as a recruiter, I mean, recently, like Tariq Whitehead, Derek Lively, he was really impactful in getting Paolo Banchero. He was also really impactful in getting Kyle Filipkowski and Zion Williamson. So John Shire's done a very good job of recruiting, but certainly like Duke has lost some of that mystique with Coach K not being there. And now John Shire kind of has to make it his own program. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how he kind of does that in the type of mold that he gives Duke. And then you talk about Indiana and having Mike Woodson be in the NBA for a really long time. I think we've seen and we've heard a lot of kids and a lot of recruits kind of talk about that impact in their recruitment. And we've seen them use the Carmelo Anthony pitch several different times, using Carmelo to talk to guys like Mackenzie Mbako, using Carmelo Anthony and the connection that Mike Woodson has to him with guys like Boogie Fland. And, you put all those things together, and I think that kind of creates a coolness factor. I mean, what kid doesn't want to talk to a future NBA Hall of Famer like Carmelo Anthony or have that kind of relationship in their back pocket? So Indiana, I think, has a really good pitch. And then Duke is obviously a program that continues to have a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail as well.
And speaking of Indiana recruiting, make sure you go to thehoosier.com. Alec's got a ton of great content there. But one of that is I was going to talk about just the group of guys that were on visits last week. But you look overall at the visits that Indiana has gotten and the difference that this is from 2-3 years ago, just that recently, it's mind-boggling. They have had 9 guys from the 24 class that are all inside the top 50, and basically virtually other than 2, 7 of them are in the top 16. 7 of the top 16 have been on visits to IU. That's big because you're going to get something. You're not going to get them all, but you're going to get something. And Indiana is really their recruiting is really been impressive to me by what Mike Williams and staff, Mike Woodson rather, and staff have done. It's in raising the Indiana's recruiting this in the last year or two. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, I think back to when Mike Woodson was hired at Indiana, and he kind of spoke about Indiana deserves a spot at the table with the most highly sought after high school recruits. I think were kind of the words or the phrases that he used. And I think there was maybe some doubt from his staff and maybe from people if that was something that he would be able to accomplish right away as Indiana's head coach. Well, in his first full class, He lands two really highly talented recruits in Joan Hood-Schifino and Malik Renew, and he turned one of them into a potential lottery pick later this week. So that really helps. And then they are targeting really highly ranked kids. Like you said, I mean, 9 kids ranked in the top 50, and that's not even a fully comprehensive list of the kids that they've hosted for unofficial or official visits on campus in Bloomington. So the best way to win in college sports is to recruit. I kind of always say that I think 70 to 75% of a college basketball or college football head coach's job is to recruit. And I think Mike Woodson understands that pretty well, considering the type of talent that he's bringing to Indiana just for visits. Now, it's one thing to bring kids to campus for visits, right? But you got to get them committed. You got to get them signed. And I think Indiana is well positioned for a lot of these kids. Do I know if they're the favorite? I don't know if they're the undisputed favorite for a lot of them at this point. But I think they're well positioned. And I think that that's half the battle when you think about the type of schools that I used going up against. And that's all you can hope for is give your best pitch, get them on campus, and hope they fall in love with Indiana basketball.
Just some of the guys that have been here in the last week, I think. Jaden Mustaf, I believe, Boogie Flan, Tyler Betsy, and Dylan Harper. Is that right? Did they have those 4 in like the last 10 days?
I don't know about Dylan Harper being on campus at Indiana.
I'm just going off of my memory, but
yeah, I don't know about Dylan Harper being on campus at Indiana, but the other 3 you mentioned there, Jaden Mustaf, you said Boogie Flan, and then Tyler Betsy were all on campus for official visits within the last 2 weeks. Flan and Betsy were on campus last week. Their official visits overlapped a little bit. I heard both of those kind of went pretty well, but I've never heard of an official visit going poorly for a school. That's kind of like a running joke that I like to make because when do visits ever go badly, it seems like. But yeah, those seem to be going pretty well. Like I said, pretty highly contested recruitments. I know Kentucky's trying to get in the mix with Boogie Flan. Alabama would like to also host him for an official visit. And then for Betsy, he took an official visit to UConn at the beginning of the month. And then I think starting today or tomorrow, Tyler Betsy will go to an official visit at Creighton.
And with all these new players coming in, and we've already talked about this, how the offense is going to expectedly be very, very different next year than it was last year when you had Trace Jackson-Davis just posted up in the middle. I think this is going to be a much more free-flowing, almost NBA-style offense.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be this upcoming season. I expect them to use a ton of ball screens this upcoming year. I think that's something that they'll do a lot with Xavier Johnson, is put him in a lot of ball screens. It's not something that they did a ton of last season. If you look at some of the advanced numbers that they use in Synergy, ball screens were the second most common, post-ups were like the second most common shot attempt that IU had last season, about 14% of those. And it should have been, right? Like they had Trace Jackson-Davis, who was one of the 2-3 best players in the country, and he averaged 21 points and shot like 58 to 60% from the field on 2-point shots. So that was smart. That should have been the offense. But now they don't have 21 points a game in the paint, and they're going to have to find ways to get high percentage looks at the paint or at the rim. And then you also need to hope that guys like Trey Galloway, guys like Mackenzie Mbako, potentially Ja'Kai Newton, Gabe Cupps are able to make some kick out opportunities out of the pick and roll and out of ball screens that should be open in the corner up at the top of the key. And I think a huge X factor is Kalel Ware's ability to kind of play in pick and pop opportunities this upcoming season. He only shot at like 27% or so last season from beyond the arc, but people always have kind of said, he has potential to be a good shooter at his size. Do I think Kalel Ware is going to be someone who shoots like 38% from 3? No, probably not. But let's be a little bit more realistic. If he shoots 33% from 3 this upcoming season, well, that's something that teams have to respect and teams have to guard. And that really helps space the floor. So if he's able to make some of those catch and shoot opportunities, something that he struggled with a little bit last season as well, then I think things kind of really open up for Indiana offensively. But in a nutshell, I would expect the ball to be in Xavier Johnson's hands a lot this upcoming season and allow him to kind of make plays out of ball screens.
Absolutely. Right now we're in the June period where coaches can live period where they can watch players, but only in high school sanctioned events. I know that Austin Schwartz is one of the guys that the staff was out watching.
Yeah, I think that was down in North Carolina this past weekend. Schwartz is ranked like in the 130s by Rivals, but we're doing a basketball ranking update this week. He's someone that I would expect to really kind of shoot up the rankings. when 24/7 did their rankings update, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, he shot up to the top 50. He's in the 40s now by 24/7. So I'd expect a similar kind of jump for him at Rivals. He's someone who shoots the lights out. He shoots the cover off the ball, whatever phrase you want to use, he does it. He's a huge bucket, super pure shot off the bounce, catch and shoot opportunities. He plays on the same AAU team as Jaden Mustafa, Boo Williams Elite on the Nike UIBL circuit. I really enjoy watching Austin Swartz shoot. His playmaking ability is something that still needs to develop and still needs to kind of be refined, especially off the bounce and his passing. But those are things that he's showing flashes of, and they are improving. So Swartz is one of my favorite kids in the entire 2024 class. And if I was in Indiana, I would be shooting hard for a visit because I love that kid's shooting ability. And I think there's a lot of schools who would love to have a shooter like that.
Well, and that brings up the point, Indiana, with that vacant scholarship still, what do you think that they're going to do with that?
So in a mailbag that I had published last night on the Hoosier, someone asked me to kind of give the odds for the different, or what happened to that last scholarship. We know Joey Hart committed to Kentucky on Saturday morning, I believe it was. And then we've seen him kind of connected to some other guys like Simeon Wilcher and Chris Johnson, who both got out of national letters of intent to North Carolina for Wilcher. He's since committed to St. John's, and then Johnson at Kansas. He's still waiting to, I think, officially get out of that national letter of intent, but we've seen Indiana have some connection there. I don't know if they'll push super hard for Johnson. They didn't push super hard for Wilcher. I think the one guy that they would maybe like the most is Antonio Reeves, a potential transfer from Kentucky. He's been rumored to heavily be interested in entering the transfer portal. He's taking summer classes at Illinois State, which is where his basketball career originally started at the college level. Jeff Goodman reported that. I had some sources indicate that to me as well. He's averaged about 14 points a game last season at UK, made about 40% of his threes. But within the last week or so, things kind of seem to be shifting a little bit more towards the idea of him potentially returning to Kentucky, which would be big for UK because we know the struggles that they've had with building a roster this upcoming season, especially an experienced roster at UK. But I think if Reeves does hit the portal, I would expect Indiana to show interest in him. He'd be a perfect fit for them at the 2. Brings good size at about 6'5", 6'6", I believe. And like I said, a really good shooter. Other schools involved there, Michigan, Illinois, Oklahoma, and Memphis, I would expect to also kind of show some interest in Reeves.
And I hate to bring it up, but players possibly leaving West Virginia after Bob Huggins' resignation there. There's going to be player fallout without question with the coaching change, I would expect, although it's kind of, I don't want to say late, but it's getting, the hours getting late for transfers into programs to really get integrated, because the workouts have started and all of that. So you want to get you would think you'd want to, if you're going to fill that spot, Indiana would want to do it as soon as possible. But now you've got this other fallout.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much on specific names at West Virginia just because I don't know yet. I haven't talked to anyone really specifically about one individual player or a group of individual players at West Virginia. It's obviously kind of a sensitive time over there in Morgantown with everything that's kind of going on there. I will say that I think the NCAA allows like a 30-day additional window for guys to enter the transfer portal if a coach is fired, and I think that that's probably fair. Like those kids probably should get a free transfer if they already used one to West Virginia. But I think that there's some things going on there at West Virginia that are worth monitoring. We don't know if Indiana would have interest in any of those guys. I know Jesse Edwards is someone who transferred to West Virginia from Syracuse before the season. Like, he's a good player, but that's not somebody that Indiana would have interest in. I wouldn't expect he plays in the front court. Kirk Risa, not someone I would expect Indiana to have a ton of interest in. He's a point guard. The Hoosiers have their point guard in Xavier Johnson. So, like I said, I don't want to speculate too much on names there and the type of people that could decide to enter the transfer portal from West Virginia, but definitely worth monitoring in the next couple of days or weeks about what kind of happens there as far as an interim head coach. Do they do a full hiring search at this point? Just the whole situation at West Virginia is definitely going to be worth following.
Alec, what's next up on the Hoosier.com for people to follow?
Yeah, it was a really busy recruiting weekend for the football program. At Indiana, they hosted about 10 or 12 kids for an official visit over the weekend. We'll try and talk to as many of those kids and get stories up on them throughout the week. And then we've got another busy week of content planned. I'll have an update on Flory Badunga posting tomorrow and his recruitment. I had a good conversation with him at the IBCA Top 100. And then we're going to try and do some good coverage of the NBA draft this week and previewing that with Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino, both highly likely to hear their names called. And the 22nd for the NBA draft and kind of live out their dreams.
Make sure you're giving Alec a follow on Twitter and at thehoosier.com for complete information up to date. Alec, thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You betcha. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio, and we're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it
Real quick, are you guys expecting me to come in on Friday again?
Yeah, we'll get back on schedule, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know beforehand before later in the week so I could plan for it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Alec.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
one, guys.
You too. Thank you. The Fort Wayne Hour, somebody said.
What would they say?
The Fort Wayne Hour.
Why do they say that? Where's it say it at? Huh. Good morning, Dustin.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I am doing well.
Fantastic. So he is around, yeah?
Oh, yeah, he's around. He just
Okay.
stepped up to do something.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Just wanted to double check and make sure.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You never know.
Okay. I mean, if his camera's on, I presume he must be, but
Yeah. It's not a facade.
no.
Got about a minute 10, Jim.
Tim, how are you? Oh. Minute and 10.
You're good. I was just trying to let him know how much
Gotcha.
time he had to get back from there. He is
There he is.
from under the curtain.
That's how I see. I don't have the nice curtain drawback stage walk-in. I have to walk under mine.
I like
I've been watching Larry Sanders again. Have you ever watched that?
God, it's been a long time.
Possibly the greatest show. God, I love it. Rip Torn was so damn funny in that.
Mm.
All right, here we go, guys.
look up, the Fresh Fork takes care of all the planning, shopping, and prepping and can even deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right, it's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, June 19th. Thanks a lot for being here. Jim Coyle with you as always. We've gone to the dogs as Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us as usual. How are you, sir? How was your weekend?
Very good. Very good. Wedding on Saturday. Went to a concert yesterday. Good weekend. Maxine's apparently got thoughts, so we're going to move out of her earshot.
Maxine is up.
Yeah.
Maxine's said, "Hey, man, she's been off for a week. She's ready. She's ready to go."
Yeah.
What concert was it?
Now she's going outside, so we're just going to let her out, and so she's going to yell at everybody out there.
What concert did you get to go see?
What's up? Well, it's
concert?
called the Wonder Road Festival up in Indy. It's this very they started doing it. It's in several cities, and it's kind of like all over the place as far as acts. But I got to see Mr. Zach Osterman. He came up for Jason Isbell, the preferred Americana singer-songwriter of sports writers everywhere. So we checked that one out last night. It was, that was great. Isbell's terrific. And it is the big running joke, if nobody knows this, that like Isbell is this generation's Springsteen in the sense that basically all sports writers like the same guys because they're very, write about the sort of topics that appeal to us and also write better than we can. And so we go to see them in part because we sort of absolutely envy their skill with words, and Isbell's just ridiculously good. So Zach actually sort of introduced me to him about 10 years ago and said, like, him and Hugh Kellenberger, like, you got to listen to this guy. And they're Southern boys, so they really get it because he's from Alabama and used to play in the drive-by truckers, and they're very sort of steeped in that. And so, yeah, I decided this was awesome, and also my wife loves them, so we always go to Isbell shows. So
Anytime someone can use the word steeped, I'm all in. Ever since brother we're out thou, we're out thou, man, I'm like, yes, interject that. I know that for those that listen on up in Fort Wayne to the Sports Rush with Brett Rump, he's got tickets coming up to see the Doobie Brothers, man.
Oh boy.
So
there you go.
So make sure you check that out.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Good sure. Yeah, absolutely. How was your? Other than that, how was your weekend? You try to stay away from sports. We had the U.S. Open that ended over the weekend. Kind of.
I missed that entirely.
It was almost hard to do because it was in L.A., which was fantastic because it didn't get over until late every day. You could just like do whatever and then watch golf until 10 o'clock. I think it got over almost at 10 o'clock last night.
Really? That sounds about right. Yeah, we still weren't back yet, but I heard good things. I mean, I saw the I guess Ricky Fowler blew it or didn't blow it, or
he blew it. Well, he blew up, but Wyndham Clark was always there.
Yeah, so that's the name I started seeing that I'd never seen before. He's won one tour event. Wow.
He's won as many majors as he has tour events now. Regular tour events.
So he had one other tour win, and then he wins the U.S. Open.
Crazy.
Tournament will do that to you. Yeah.
Rory McIlroy was there, which it brought some good intrigue. What's hard to say for golf, but it was an exciting. It was exciting because the U.S. Opens are always, God, they usually set those courses up so tough. And it got a little easier than usual but it tightened back up but it was fun to watch.
Right. It seems like it was a really good tournament. Like I said, we were popping around so much because we had a wedding on Saturday and somewhere else to go on Friday. I mean, we were just all over the place this weekend. So there was much less than usually this would have been like College World Series weekend for me. So I watched a little bit of that, kind of picked up what I could of that, but didn't get anything yesterday at all. So I missed the Open entirely.
I watched Florida beat Oral Roberts. I think it was Oral Roberts last night that they knocked out. They eliminated.
No, Oral Roberts is still in. That was a winner's bracket game.
Okay, I forget who.
Virginia got eliminated by TCU. So that was the first elimination game. So
TCU had lost to Oral Roberts once.
TCU had lost to Oral Roberts
6-5, which shocked me because TCU usually has been scoring like 20 runs a game.
Yeah, it's been wild. But Oral Roberts is good, man. Oral Roberts don't die. I mean, they were down to their last out against Oregon, rallied back to win that sucker. You know,
the College World Series is just fun to watch because you don't know what's going to happen all the way through the ninth inning, man.
No, you don't.
It's so fun.
Mm-hmm. No, it's college kids because you can't. I mean, it's the same as college football, college basketball. Like they can make mistakes in any way possible, and baseball just by its very nature is like you can be the better team and you make one mistake, and you know it's a different ball game. And it's just there are so many. It's really a big sample size sport because like that's how things end up evening out over time. But on a one game scenario, man, anything can happen. And so like you add to the chaos of it being college kids. So really, yeah, I mean, it could break 1,000 different ways. You know, like the best team does not always win. You know, sometimes it's guys got the best pitcher that night, or it's just, hitter gets lucky at the right time, catch around, wrong break, bad error, whatever. It's all over the place. But I mean, it's a super fun event. I always try to keep tabs on, but like that after covering it up close with Indiana in 2013 adds a level of intrigue when you kind of really see how it works on a day-to-day basis and what you need to win that tournament, how hard it is. It's really something else. It's going to be a fun tournament going forward. I mean, great teams involved. Wake has been phenomenal. Florida's been very good. LSU being down there, they got probably the best pitcher and the best hitter in college baseball, possibly two, top 5 picks and Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens. So they got a real crack at it. So it's going to continue to be a really interesting tournament.
The draft is coming up. You mentioned this week. It's that time, man. It's going to happen. What are your thoughts on the Pacers, Trace Jackson Davis, Jalen Hood-Schifino, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, no, I mean, things are going to start moving. I thought, obviously, big trade. I don't know if it technically went through, but hit the airwaves yesterday. Brad Beal traded to Phoenix for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and some other pieces there. I think Josh Goodwin as well. So that kind of starts the ball rolling. I mean, it does seem like there's going to be a lot of trades involved. I got a story in today about kind of ranked what I think are kind of the trade values of the pieces that the Pacers might try to move. So I mean, they're linked to trying to get a hold of OG Anunoby. Apparently, according to several reports, they tried to get him at the trade deadline. Couldn't necessarily move it then. I think there's a chance that if Toronto would be willing to do it, they might be willing to move the 7 because they're obviously looking to get, really their most likely targets right now are 2 defensive-minded forwards. And it's like, well, if you're really looking for somebody to become OG Anunoby, why not just go get OG Anunoby? So there's a chance that might happen. Don't know exactly what Toronto is commanding for that. If the Pacers are willing to give up the 7 or not. But they're going to be trying to make some moves. Kevin Pitcher has said since the beginning that he doesn't want to bring in 5 rookies. So 26, 29, 32 have been on the block the entire time. They've been aggressively looking to move those. So they're going to try to make some moves. Maybe they could go get somebody outside of the draft, a current player. I'm sure they've tried to move up, and I'm sure they will continue to try to move up. It's just a question of, it does seem like the cost for getting up to 2 or 3 to try to get Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson is pretty high. But if they don't, it looks increasingly like it's going to be Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks on the table for them because All-Star Thompson skipped a workout, withdrew from a workout. So the suggestion there is that he might have a promise from somebody above 7, possibly Orlando at 6. Don't know that, obviously can't guarantee that, but the fact that he withdrew from a workout when it seems like that's his area where he might get picked up, suggests that might be a possibility. Seems like a lot more people are mocking Cam Whitmore to Detroit, and I think Detroit's a really big sort of fulcrum piece for the Pacers in terms of who's going to be left on the board. So if they do make the pick, seems increasingly likely it's between Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks. It seems like, by reading the tea leaves out there, they like both of them. They really fit. Both, again, defensive-minded forwards who can defend multiple positions, can get out on guards, keep them in front of them, can both block shots at the rim. Really good rotation guys, really smart defenders, and guys who each kind of have their own offensive skill set that works. Taylor Hendricks is a really good shooter. Walker is not as effective as a shooter, but he's got a lot of other parts to his game. Was really did a lot of creating at IMG Academy when he was there. He was only at Houston for a year, and they had Marcus Sasser and everything else. So he didn't have the ball in his hands as much as he had at previous times in his career. But he seems like a really useful guy. It would if it comes down to those two, it's a tough call. But if it does come down to those two again, the Pacers need some defense, and both of those guys can bring it. Trace, I keep seeing him, move up a little bit. I mean, don't see his name before 22, 23, but does seem like he'll safely be in the top 35 based on where he's being mocked up. But there's a lot of variance once you get to about 11. Again, you're seeing, these mock drafts, you kind of trust the, just the expertise here, but there's going to be a lot of moving parts from that point on. It seems like Hood-Schifino is more steadily showing up in the top 15, and I think he's probably the maybe third or fourth best lead guard after Scoot Henderson being one, Eamon Thompson probably being two, actually probably fourth, Anthony Black, and then it's probably Jalen, and he might be the most sort of steady, pure, if you will, point guard out of the group. So you're seeing him linked to Toronto Raptors at 13, Atlanta at 15, Miami at about, I think, 18. It does seem like he's safely going to go in the top 20. It seems like he's really helped himself in the draft process. But again, he's just the most sort of steady, experienced, one of the most steady, experienced lead guards out there. So he's I think really in good shape going into this draft.
And we'll find all that out this Thursday. But as you said, things change. Not only do they change every minute of every day, but man, once the draft starts, the draft rooms, draft headquarters of these teams, I'm sure people have seen the movies and all that stuff. It's really like that. I don't know. Is it like that in the NBA as much as the NFL? Those are kind of different type of style of draft. What are the differences that you see between the NBA and the NFL?
I mean, I think obviously the biggest thing is just the number of humans that are involved. Basically the NFL, you're obviously talking about 7 rounds. You're talking about,
so many different positions,
24, 25 positions when you count the specialists. There just so much has to be evaluated, and there have to be so many people involved. So you got to bring in so many scouts. There just have to be a lot of more voices, and draft capital is in a way bigger because if you get a second or third round guy, that could be a starter, for you. Whereas in the NBA, the late second round guy is probably starting his career in the G League, almost certainly. And so there's a lot of moving parts, but also on the flip side, while there's not as many guys that you have to evaluate, as many positions as you have to evaluate for and make all those decisions on a positional level, you also have more international scouting involved. Obviously, you have to be able to know, how good is this guy that played this year in New Zealand who's from France? How good is this guy from from not Slovakia, usually Slovenia, usually it's Yugoslavian countries that are producing, high level talent. But it just basically everybody's got to have an eye on everybody. I mean, the Pacers have probably done more workouts this year, worked out more guys than they ever have. I mean, I think they're going to end up in the 60s. I think they are in the 60s. They get 2 more today because they've got 5 picks and they've got to be prepared to make every single one of them. And so it's still a significant haul. It's just, again, like the positional difference in football, just with positions just being more specific, basketball being increasingly positionless, changes the dynamic and on some level makes it easier, but you do still have to, there's just there are just so many basketball players, out there in the world, and you've got to know who really fits and who does what you want. And also, again, be ready to move because, somebody picks your guy and then all of a sudden, you might know in the NFL, all right, well, they're not picking a cornerback. They're not picking a quarterback, but these guys, no, so.
Let's take a quick break. Dustin Dopirak from Indy Stars with us, just talking some NBA draft at the moment. We'll do more of that when we come back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market
We're on in Fort Wayne as well, Dustin. And now at that break, I just take a little pause because it makes it. No. It was perfect. It was perfect, and that's an easy way for me to do that, and that allows John to make a cleaner edit. They only take the first hour of the show right now.
Okay. So there's kind of a pseudo hard break at the end of the first hour of the show.
Gotcha. Okay.
We kicked off. Who'd we kick off?
What do you mean?
Off
the last part of Colin Cowherd. Yeah.
No. It's
it's Doug Gottlieb. Gottlieb.
We kicked Doug Gottlieb to the curb, baby.
Man.
Proud of that, man. Proud of that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Moving Doug Gottlieb. We're in Chicago.
Nice.
You're everywhere, Dustin Dopirak.
Spreading out, we're becoming worldwide right here.
Actually, because I get these notifications like once a week or whenever, because the show is obviously the radio show, we send it out as a podcast. A lot of people think it's just a podcast, but anyway, we send it out as a podcast as well as YouTube. But the podcast numbers jumped up, and it just says, I just happened to see it. Your number one listens. Outside of the U.S., it was Iceland, Singapore, and Australia.
I'm not surprised. I'm huge in Singapore. They love me.
I've heard that.
What can I say? I have mass appeal out there.
Yeah,
Singapore.
I'm big in Iceland. There's nothing really else to do there.
Iceland and Singapore really get me. Drastic differences there.
I'm like, wow. There's. Yeah. I love, and whoever you are, if you hear this, I love you.
Yes,
love
thank
you,
you, Iceland and Singapore, whoever in those countries
Australia, like that could be. I think it's Chris that listens when he can in Australia.
I believe that. I know, like the Pacers got some Australian fan base, so that might help.
And I've seen some from other part like Indonesia. There was another one I've seen. I'm like, wow.
Man.
And if you're someone that's moving around like that, take me with you, and we'll do the shows from there.
So if you're paying for travel, we're gonna go all out there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're hey, we travel, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a Reds fan, aren't you?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Damn it! I'm trying to think. I can't remember who. There's somebody that comes on. I'm the only other that's a Reds fan, and I cannot remember who it is.
I'm trying to think. It's got to be somebody. There's enough people out there that
Who's your team?
Here we go, guys. 5 seconds.
Yeah.
All made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, June 19th. Thanks a lot for being with us. Appreciate you. Jim Coyle, as always, joined by Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Not a Reds fan. Who's your team? Pittsburgh, I'm assuming, maybe?
Yeah. Grew up there, so.
You and DeCourcy.
He grew up 15 minutes from me, so we speak Yinzer all the time.
Now, when did you first get to meet Mike? Cross paths with him? And I'm sure you knew that he was from there and all that stuff.
I did. I'm trying to remember. It was here. It was definitely when I was covering IU the first time.
Oh, wow.
In Bloomington. And I can't remember what he was at. But I did introduce myself as I'm a Pittsburgh guy too. So that's kind of where I started to say. So Mike and I, and Mike's been great to me actually. Since then, and we always talk Pittsburgh stuff when we see each other. But he was really a huge help for me a couple of times when I was out of the business and trying to get back in. Mike was really good about saying, "Hey, here's an opportunity. I think this would be a good fit for you." Stuff like that. So like Mike's been great. And so yeah, he's still highly regarded back in the Berg, Point Park and Elizabeth Forward graduate Mike DeCourcy. So now we go way back, but I didn't know him before I got out to Bloomington the first time.
In baseball right now, I was talking earlier, the Reds, I never dreamed of talking about the Reds other than being the new Cubs. But they're a half a game back right now. It's blowing my mind that they're a half a game back, in St. Louis is the last.
It's a terrible St.
It's always a terrible division, but the Reds are usually last in a terrible division.
True. Usually, it was a great division for the 3 years the Pirates were actually good. Is when it became the best division in baseball. It was great timing, wonderful, because St. Louis was just ripping off 100-win seasons around that point in time, and the Pirates won 98 in 2015 and still had to play a wild card game against the Cubbies, and that's how Schwarber wrecked them, and that was the end of the brief respite from loserdom from the Pirates. But Pirates are in good shape. Well, not good shape, but they're right there too. They just got swept over the weekend by Milwaukee. But that division is going to be wide open, man. And it's because there's just a whole bunch of young talent in there. I mean, and obviously the Reds having a bunch of it with, De La Cruz is something, is a specimen, and just, incredible. So Cincinnati's going to have a crack at it. Milwaukee's going to have a crack at it. Pittsburgh's going to have a crack at it. Chicago's going to have a crack at it. And I won't bury St. Louis until they're dead, you know. Basically, until St. Louis is mathematically eliminated,
especially in that division.
Yeah, exactly. With the way things are, they could just wake up one morning and decide, all right, we're going to play now. And I mean, they still have, they probably have it, like, without thinking too much about it, probably have the two best players in the division in Goldschmidt and Arredondo. So, if it's for some reason they're a wreck, but they're the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm not going to believe they're dead until they're dead.
Yeah, I was trying to look exactly what. Yeah, they're only 8.5 games back. As dumb as that sounds, not in this division. That's not that much. Like
I said, and they wake up like tomorrow morning and go from a run all the way through July, and then the next thing you know, they're up by 10. Like it wouldn't, I will not believe that it's impossible until it's like September and it hasn't happened.
Well, Milwaukee's leading the division, and they're only 3 games over 500.
Yeah. So it's going to be one of those years in that division, and so it's going to give some teams a shot. Again, it's going to keep St. Louis alive, but Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, even Chicago. I mean, Chicago's only 4.
Joey Votto comes back. They've done all this without Joey Votto.
Yeah. I mean, but they got pieces, man. They got pieces. They've won 8 in a row. Jeez. Yeah.
Do they do the same thing that they do after this year's over with? How many of these guys do they lose? I don't know how many of those guys they can hold on to, but
they're young, man. I mean, I'm looking at this group, and Jonathan India is still young. Jake Fraley's still young. Like, I'm seeing guys I didn't even realize were up there. I mean, they've got young talent, so it gives them a start. Spencer Steer, all those guys, they're probably under contract for a little while longer, and that's what you got to do is take advantage of those windows when you've got young guys. You don't have to pay them yet.
Ed says, how about Silver Creek? They won the 3A state championship, so congratulations to the Creekers down there from Southern Indiana.
Good for you.
Absolutely. I'll give a shout out to anybody. Yeah, go Reds. Absolutely. It's rare that if you're a Reds fan, you get to cheer for the Reds. It's been, I literally thought that they were just the new Chicago Cubs forever, and that was going to be what it was, because they didn't seem like they were trying to win. They just kept building talent and selling it, which, hey, they're in a business, and I get it, but fans don't care about the business side, man. They want to win. They want to have a team to cheer for.
No, I mean, they do. I mean, obviously Pirates went through 20 losing seasons. And so, I mean, they get bothered by it over time. I mean, baseball fans are savvy. Baseball fans are increasingly savvy in, the internet era and sabermetrics and everything like that. I mean, they largely have bought into a lot of these concepts because they've been sort of elevated. Obviously, they turned Moneyball into a movie. So, there's been this, I think, increasing understanding of, building a baseball team is hard, building an organization is hard. Piecing it together takes years and years and years to get right. You can't just wake up one morning and say, well, I need 5 good ball players and it'll help me. You've got to build, you've got to draft well, you've got to develop well. It is, like you require sort of putting down roots and making them work. But I mean, when you try to build young talent and you have a group that's supposed to come together and win and it doesn't, or it only wins for a year or two, that adds a lot of frustration, especially if you're in a small market and you can't just decide in and off season, hey, I'm going to go get 3 free agents and pay them $300 million and get myself back in it. And so, but it's just, so the frustration builds, over years when, you try and fail and whatever. And the Pirates have had a couple of those scenarios where it seemed like they had a group that was going to go somewhere and didn't, it was magic the 3 years they were good. And it's just, I'm sure, the Reds are the same way, that if they get on a run of a couple seasons, even if they don't win a division or whatever, if they don't win a World Series, you still get invested. I mean, I had Jeff Miller is a guy that was in, IU student media, still does a lot of reporting on NASCAR. He roomed with me my second or third year in Bloomington, and I just remember how excited he was when they won the division that year. I think it was 2011. And so it seemed like for a minute, just sort of at the early parts of the Votto era that they had a chance to be really good for a while, and it didn't maintain. They obviously had a couple players that kept them competitive. But it didn't stay that way. So, the Reds have a great fan base, and if they get good and stay good, you're going to see the devotion come back. And obviously, I've just seen sort of from Reds fans I follow on Twitter, how excited they are about Ellie De La Cruz. And, he seems like what Pirates fans were doing over O'Neal Cruz last year, but even better because he seems more advanced and a better hitter. Frankly. So it's like, that's a guy that can really, I think, change the trajectory of the franchise and make them good for a long time.
Before we switch subjects, I just learned yesterday that Eduardo Perez is the son of Tony Perez. I had no idea. I did not know that.
I knew that when he was in the league.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yep.
And I'll have to get Jeff Miller's information, man. I'd love to talk to him about NASCAR. Who does he report for?
I don't even know. He's had various, it's like always been kind of a freelance deal. I think he's got another full-time job that's not that. But I'll find that out and pass it along.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot of people love to follow that as I do as well. I know the rest of your week is going to be just busy, built around the draft, with everything coming up. With all you mentioned the workouts. They've got 2 more today, I saw, and you mentioned they've gone through like 60 guys. That is just so much information to go through, and then they'll probably end up using 4% of it, maybe.
Yeah. No, exactly. They'll, their hope, I think, is to make 2 or 3 picks tops, and rather than 5. And it's gonna. They obviously have to put a lot of work into it, but they've got to be prepared to make every pick. They've got to be, and they also have to be prepared that you might move these picks and pick up those picks, and they might get to, let's say they, get rid of some of the picks in the middle, but they might pick up one late in the second round because someone has to offload it. That's not out of the question. So they've got to be prepared for everybody who's, top 10, 20 to 10 to 20, 20 to 30. I would think if they can't get somebody like OG and they can't move up from 7, then they'll probably try to get something from 10 to 20. To see if they can package those, 26, 29, and 32. See if somebody in between 10 and 20 is willing to move them. And so I think that's going to be a big focal point is to try to get up there, to try to get somebody else that's kind of either late lottery or just right past that level, and get a potential impact rookie. So they've got to be prepared for sort of everybody. And obviously part of the evaluation, when you bring these guys in, is you're creating these group workouts, and some of the guys you bring in, you're not picking. Some of it's just so you can get 3-on-3. Just so you can have bodies that are enough for them to be competitive. like they brought in a guy who spent his first 4 years as an Olivet Nazarene and his last year at Morehead State. He's going to play professionally someplace, but it's not an NBA prospect. But say he was a local guy. They needed to fill a spot, and he was enough. And so it's like some of it is that, like, not all of it is draft evaluation, but it's getting guys out there. And I think they brought in 2 point guards, Tiger Campbell and Marquise Noel. I don't think they'll draft either one of them because they don't need a point guard. But I think they wanted to put bigger guys in position where they had to guard smaller guys, and just create that sort of scenario. Noel's terrific, and he's going to go someplace, and Campbell as well. But I think a big part of it was like, hey, can these other guys guard point guards? And high level point guards, and see what that looks like. So it's not all, you're not evaluating all of them as far as a draftable, situation, but you do have to kind of create these competitive environments so that you can test the guys that you're interested in.
Brother, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. What's up next for you as far as content wise? I know we just talked about what you're working on, but that people need to find at the Star.
Right. Yeah. No. So obviously, again, we're still doing our byline withdrawal protests. So anything that you see out there that I wrote will not have my name on it while we're still negotiating our.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I'll still tell you what's out there, but just plugging that while we're still doing it. But today, we got a piece on. Like I said, I ranked kind of all of the trade, all of their assets between players, picks, etc., and kind of tried to rank them in order of what I think they can draw, sort of their trade value. And so, like I said, we'll obviously have workouts this week. As I understand it, we're going to talk to Ryan Carr, who's going to be vice president of basketball personnel for the Pacers, just kind of get a rundown of this year and where they stand and how the evaluation process has gone. And so, yeah, we're just going to, and we're going to try to do as much other content as we can, just leading up to the draft. And again, it's a big one for them. In terms of building this franchise and where they're going, just the whole of what they're going to be able to bring in, whether it is just guys that they draft, whether it's guys that they pick up, it's going to be a very interesting piece. So we're going to cover it all through the week and going forward, writing off of it and whatever happens from there.
Can we talk about that, or is that something you're stayed away from?
The byline protest?
Yeah.
So I yes, but I'm not in bargaining. But the important thing I think just to note, obviously, is that the Guild has been trying to get a contract through Gannett for the last 2.5 years and not been successful. So obviously the point is to kind of put pressure on it. And the Star journalists have done just such great work, and it's ridiculous to not have a contract with people that produce that. And obviously I haven't been around for all of it, and certainly the greatest stuff that's been done by any Star journalist was done before I got there. But you're talking about a paper that's recently won a Pulitzer that really should have won a Pulitzer, before that for the Nasser coverage, basically. And obviously I think that's just the way the Pulitzer committee works. A lot of the impact hadn't hit, the year that story ran. Not all of the stories had come out, but you look at just, again, what's been produced by this newsroom, and there's just, it should have a contract. I think I don't know how many years it's been since they've done, what is it? Cost of living, pay adjustments. I know is an important piece there. So all of that is important. Like I'm not on the bargaining committee, so I'm not one of the people that sort of sits down and gets this stuff done. And there are a lot of people. Jenna Watson is our president, and she's done, I think, great work explaining that in various media outlets about what's going on with that. So I don't want to try to step on her toes or say anything out of line, but I know a lot of people have been working really hard to try to get this contract together, and I think that the obvious point is just that this should be done and put pressure on the Gannett to make sure it does get done.
Pay my men, pay the guys, pay them. I'm with you, brother. We stand together. All right, Dustin Dopirak, appreciate you, my friend. Make sure you check out his work with or without the byline, because it's incredible stuff. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You bet. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether
All right. I will be right back.
Well, that would be good. Man, I feel like it's dark in here. I hate it.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. It looks so dark in here.
It doesn't look as bad as you think it does, I think.
I guess not.
This segment I'm going to be on. I'm going to remove myself unless you just really want me in, so I can get some things rolling with for post production. But I'll sit in with you for the last segment if you want me to for the whole time, as long as I can get the rest of this stuff finished up quickly.
So I got 40 minutes to do by myself.
Well, you don't have to do them all by yourself. Again, if you have something you want to talk with me about, all I got to do is put myself back in while you're talking.
I'm so scared.
I'm so scared. Where? I tell you, that is one thing that I definitely respect from you and other people, especially those who do entire solo shows. That just seems something that is very difficult to do well.
You're very opinionated if you can do that, which I guess I am, but that would get me back in trouble.
Just call for John Boy, like you typically do. If you want my thoughts
Nope.
on anything.
Help!
I'm a drowning man on the radio. Oh, and we can talk about this after. It's not a bad thing. It's about a guest for later in the week, but I don't want to say anything about. Okay. Honestly, it's not a big deal. Dustin Schuette's gonna come on Thursday. It's not a secret.
Yeah, well, it's been usual.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Food is their main focus. Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It is June 19th. Thanks a lot for being with us. Just finished up with Dustin Dopirak. Love that. Always enjoy talking to him. It is mid-June. You've got baseball. You've got the College World Series. College basketball is in its, I'd call the final stages of recruiting for the next season, just because guys they need to get in there. Now, not to say that there's not going to be things that happen later. There will. There's going to be things that happen, like at West Virginia. I mean, things will happen where and keeping those guys is probably going to be very, very difficult because the players are in really limbo right now because they don't know who their coach is or is going to be. And that's going to be hell for whoever coaches them because I don't know how many are going to end up staying. It's too late. Now, it's too late to enter the portal unless you're a grad student. But does that coaching change, does that allow that? I'll have to go back and check that. Very interesting. Man, what happens when there's a coaching change after the deadline? Yeah, somebody will let me know that. Does the coaching change allow West Virginia players, does it give them an avenue to enter the portal even though it's closed? Ooh. We'll have to find that out. Andrew says the Reds could move a few players and pick up a few more pitchers. Maybe Chapman comes back to where he started. Aroldis Chapman bringing the heat. Wouldn't that be cool to see? Does he still have it? Kenneth said, I think so. He said at the right price, he'd be interesting. Is he still where is he? Is he still with New York now, the Yankees? I have no idea where he is. It was fun watching him. Thank you, Travis. They have 30 days after the coaching change. Very interesting. So now it's going to be interesting to see the fallout from West Virginia, who had a pretty damn good team. They're well coached. So that's going to be – he's with the Royals now? Wow. Whom the Reds just took a series from. I don't know if they swept them. I can't remember, but yeah. Wow, he's with the Royals. Dude has been around. Didn't he pitch for the Cubs before the Yankees? I mean, that dude, if he went into the Hall of Fame, and I just learned this talking to Scott. Oh my gosh. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Our good friend from Jasper, Scott Rowland, man. I just learned talking to Scott back earlier, days after his induction. I was talking to him about, what hat he was going to wear or choose. And because he'd played for 5 teams, but 2, you got the Reds and the Cardinals. I thought he was going to end up going in with what they now offer, no hat, which is a profile view of the player instead of the straight on that has the hat on top of it. But I also learned that the Hall has a lot of influence on what hats are chosen. They're going to help you make the right decision, it seems. Kenneth says that Billy Hamilton is also with the Royals. So, oh man, there's a Reds All-Star team around the major league. There you go. I thought so. He was a part of that 2016 World Championship team with Kyle Schwarber. Kenneth says he'd love a package deal to bring back Hamilton back as well. Yeah, those were fun days, man. But it's the youth. It's that, yeah. They definitely need. I don't know if Joey Votto is ready to do it. He hadn't. I don't know how as well his rehab assignment has gone in Louisville. That'll be something I look forward to talking to Rick Bozich about. Louisville, of course, is the AAA farm team for the Reds, where Joey Votto has been on assignment of late. So I know he's talked to him and has a great take on that. Look forward to it. Let's see. We talked about the IBCA, Indiana Basketball Coaches Association's top 100 that happened over the weekend. Didn't really talk about Trent Sisley. We'll get into him more later in the week. But Flory Badunga, basically, I'm not going to say Cincinnati's out because I don't have the knowledge to do that, knowing the relationship that he has with the coaching staff there. But it definitely appears it's potentially down to Indiana and Duke. And I said earlier, this is not the Duke that he had his affinity for. It's not Mike Krzyzewski. Now, it's a great school. Don't get me wrong. It's an incredible school. Duke is a very, very, from an academic standpoint, it's highly, highly regarded. Having played there will be great. And Indiana had that same cachet, they had lost it, without question, but they're getting it back. But you have to win to fully get it back, I believe. And by win, I mean you've got to do something. You've got to be at the Final Four at a minimum to regain that complete swagger. But they're on their way. I look at the recruiting that Mike Woodson is doing, and I just like, brother, it's coming. It's coming. Indiana is going to, I think the recruiting is going to hit like a wave for Indiana, and it's going to continue. The staff is doing such an incredible job, I think, in getting out, talking to the guys they need to talk to, getting them in. I read the list earlier of the guys that Indiana has had in. 7 out. What was it? 7 out of the top 15 or something. I can't remember, but it's mind-boggling. I don't recall ever this amount of talent in this era of this style of recruiting coming to Indiana, even for visits. But that's what it's going to take, as everyone knows, the athleticism, the talent to be a winner at the level that I just talked about. That's why Duke is still, even without Mike Krzyzewski right now, they're still close enough. Now, if it's 10 years later and they haven't done jack squat in 10 years, it starts to fade. That luster starts to fade. And we'll see how whether that happens or not. This is a completely different era too, though. So they'll have a lot better chance on hanging on to that shiny star and making Duke keep shining. But if you're an Indiana fan, I don't think you have anything to worry about. What are they going to do this year? Man, I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch all of this talent come together. A lot of youth, and with the experience of Xavier at the point, we'll try to get Xavier on at some point. But I know that they're really, really busy right now with workouts. But I think Indiana is going to surprise some people. But the good thing about them is they're not going to go into this season with the pressure they had last year. Being picked the favorite probably did not work in their favor. They would have probably been better off if Purdue had been picked the favorite, chased them, beat them. And I don't think that group was I just don't think that they handled that tag well. So, but we'll see. We'll see. That's what they do it for. Some comments. So what about Purdue? You know what? Purdue doesn't have a lot of changes. I mean, Purdue is going to be Purdue. Purdue should be better. On paper, they should be better than they were last year. Last year, they won the Big Ten championship. Now, they had the easiest schedule in the Big Ten last year that's statistical, not me. That's not my opinion. So that made it easy for them. And I'm going to say, now, whether teams can use the blueprint that Indiana did, I don't know, because Indiana's not going to be the same team. They're not going to have that same team that they had last year. Their attack this year against Purdue will be completely different. Michigan State, you have Tom Izzo. He knows that you're not going to beat the big guy. He's going to get his. You have to defend every other position. If you defend 4 out of 5 positions to the nth degree, they're not going to win 30. They're not going to beat you with 30 points, which is what Zach Edey is going to score a game. You're just not going to stop the dude, man. There's no one in college basketball that I've seen that can just stop him right now from getting his. But like I said, you're not going to win with just his points. Now, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, obviously, man, they had a year of playing as freshmen, an entire season is playing in freshmen. Those guys should be really, really good, really in tune. Purdue's offense, which will be the exact same, should be easier to run. They've got other guys back, though. They got Mason Gillis back. He seems like he's been there forever. So their entire core is back. That's usually never a bad thing, especially when you were as successful as they were last year in the Big Ten. Now, I still don't think that does anything for you on a national scale. But if Purdue's guards improve, that will make them a very, very difficult out in the NCAA tournament. But people have found ways to get Purdue out easily in the last 3 years. But this is going to be a different one. This is going to be interesting with Zach Edey coming back and these guards being older, Mason Gillis being there. There's no way that they're not the favorite to win the Big Ten, with Michigan State right there with them. After that, that's Indiana is a question mark. Not because I don't think they're going to be good. We just don't know how good they're going to be, because there's so many new faces. As of right now, 6, and I still expect 7. Who that 7th will be, that we don't know. We talked to Alec Busse earlier, and he mentioned the guy from Kentucky. How ironic that would be, the former Kentucky player. How ironic that would be. Joey Hart had 4 years. And I think in the end, that was, again, I'm guessing here. Well, I tell you, when I have information, I say it's information. Otherwise, I'm talking opinion. This is completely opinion. I think that he was getting the hold sign still, and because they were just afraid to give up 4 years. Not sure why with a kid that could be that good, but in this day and age, I do understand, because I've said it a lot. College basketball is now a 2-year cycle sport. Just plan everything being 2 years. Boom, boom. The team you have coming up this season, Well, how many of them are going to be back? Not all of them. You have to have a mix. You need guys that are in the top, that are going to be in the top 20 of the draft, because those guys are elite. And I'm not saying you need 5 of them. I think you need one. You have to have one on every team, I think, because that's elite talent. That's just elite talent. But you also have to fill it with development and now with the portal. I mean, you look what Rick Pitino did. What's he brought in? 26 new players this year, John?
26.
I was kidding. That's a joke.
Oh, because whenever you said that reminded me of what's his name out in head coach Colorado football,
Dion,
who's got in 56 transfers or whatever.
Well, I called. Well, you weren't here last week, and I called Rick Pitino the Deion Sanders of college basketball.
Maybe in that sense, but definitely
to my knowledge, he's brought in 9 new faces at Boston College.
St.
John's, rather. 9. You only have 13 scholarship players. He's brought in 9. I'm assuming they may have 3 left over from the previous team. Who will handle Mbako, Russell asked, and where, plus the sophomore? Well, if you're an Indiana fan, you want them to be great, but you have to also remember he's a freshman. He's going to have his way with a lot of people, but he's going to run into some people. It will be great to see how he develops, how quickly he develops. That's exactly what I'm talking. Mbako is a player that I'm talking about, exactly that type. If that's a top 20 draft player because of his performance next season, that's what you have to have every year. You have to have one of those guys.
Great.
We've got lots more to talk about here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. So glad that you're here. So glad to be back after a little vacay, refreshed, and we're ready to go. Don't forget to stop by Hank's Pizza Mac. If you're in the Bloomington area, right on College, you can order it up, 812-330-0000. Mac Bowls, Top Bowls, Pizza. Who's your Hank? We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the...
All right.
It feels so good to be back.
I know. A good break does you in sometimes. I'm definitely feeling...
Dude, even the 3 days for me was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I felt guilty, but...
No need to feel guilty.
Hey, what day would you like for Tom Crean to come on? And what time?
Let me think here. How about Wednesday at 8:50? Because we can take him all the way to 9:30. Because I don't think we have anybody else at that time. Because Kravitz is not at Wednesday right now.
That would be awesome, because that would be the entire Fort Wayne deal, right?
Yeah. Ask if we can do 8:50 on Wednesday. Because unless I've forgotten something, we don't have anybody.
I don't care if you have.
Well, I'm asking if I need to tell.
I was getting ready to say they be getting bumped.
Yeah, I think Wednesday is wide open for the first hour. So do 8:50 or see if you can.
Kevin, that's why we love you.
And we're glad you missed us, but we're also glad you're back with us.
That works.
Well, that was a quick response. Good stuff. Tom Crean on Wednesday. And the audience got a little behind the scenes action of scheduling a guest. All right,
Bam!
30 seconds.
Boom. That's a big one.
It is.
Endeavor Hospitality Group, launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Cordell, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday. Thanks a lot so much for being with us, as always. We appreciate you greatly. Middle of June, man, just past the middle of June. I can't believe it. Rolling.
Summer officially begins in 2 days.
Don't say that. I don't need to hear it. But it was 90.
Honestly, it feels like summer's already here. Once you hit
Dude, it was
Memorial
96
Day,
in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago. So, yeah. Yeah, it's just hot and humid, but that's okay. Tomorrow on the program, the great Mike DeCourcy, of course, from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network, Chronic Hoosier as well.
Kevin Brockway also going to join us tomorrow.
Oh, K-Bro, it's right on there with us. Bonus. We'll talk about the College World Series. He's covering Florida. Of course, you know, Kevin Brockway, a former IU beat writer. He's now with the Gainesville Sun, but he comes on with us, great friend of the show. We can talk, you know, Big Ten or whatever with him. But I'm grateful that he's coming on because I don't know if he's in Omaha. Omaha. I can't say Omaha without saying it like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just I love it. But I wonder if he's out there. We'll find out. Mike DeCourcy and Chronic Hoosier as well. Wednesday, former Indiana coach Tom Crean will be joining us here on the program. We'll talk about he just had 3 players play for an NBA ring. I don't know that there's a college coach, John Calipari included, that can say that. Not this season.
Who other than Thomas Bryant and Cody Zeller?
Victor Oladipo wasn't playing, but he was
Okay.
hurt on the Miami roster. So yeah, wasn't really playing, but we'll see. Russell said he thought Brian Evans. Oh. They're trying to figure out who Chronic Hoosier is. The mystery behind Chronic Hoosier. It will remain a mystery.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Same with Martha the Mop Lady.
There you go. Exactly. 2 great Twitter characters.
Yep.
Speaking of great Twitter characters, I'm still mourning the loss of potentially the greatest Twitter character I personally have ever seen on there. They didn't say much, but when they did, it was freaking hilarious. And that was Captain Andrew Luck. This guy had his profile picture was a picture of a Civil War captain with but with Andrew Luck's head superimposed with his little scrabbly beard and a hat on top. It's It was beautiful. And he would just say the funniest things, like just once or twice a week. And when Andrew Luck retired, it was over.
Yep.
This dude had thousands of followers. I wonder if he's still on Twitter.
While you're looking for that, I was always a big fan. There was two in particular I enjoyed, both Indiana related. One was the @CreanyTom Twitter account, parody of Tom Crean, obviously. And then I can't remember what the name of this one was specifically.
Wait a minute, what did you just? Which one did you just say?
CreanyTom. It was a fake Tom Crean account. But one of my other favorites, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was a parody account of former Indiana football coach Kevin Wilson. I remember he did something called that account did something called Crock Pot Wednesdays. I don't remember what the theme of it was, but I do specifically remember that was a tradition of his, Crock Pot Wednesdays, or maybe it's been Tuesdays. I don't know.
I'm not finding it.
Yo, I think CreanyTom, I think that was deleted.
I'm talking about Captain Andrew Luck.
No, that one was probably deleted as well, because I know the Kevin Wilson one was also.
I mean, this thing had like tens of thousands of followers. Wait a minute. See, and there were, I don't know if this is the same one, but there's Captain Andrew Luck retired. See, there were people. This guy it was so good that there are multiple parody accounts off of that one. Here's Captain Andrew Luck's dearest mother. Captain Andrew Luck retired Captain Andrew Luck. And then another, and then Captain Sergeant, whatever. But sad, yeah. He lost. I mean, he had thousands of followers. Wish he just would have donated them to me.
But funny stuff. The Kevin Wilson one was probably a cocktail recipe thread.
Yeah, that would be funny. Philip pointing out that Kentucky had 3 alumni in the NBA Finals with Bam Adebayo, who he was on Miami, Murray, and Tyler Hero. Now, he's with Denver, right?
I do not know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a big follower of the Kentucky alumni. But I do know he did play on one of those teams in the finals, yes.
So look at that. Between Indiana and Kentucky, six of the guys, 6 of the roster players from that. I'm pretty sure that'd be hard to find 2 other schools with that. But very possible. Kansas, Duke. Be interesting to see how I'll have to look that up. I was meaning to look that up anyway, to see what schools have the most players in the NBA right now. I looked up a while back as in regards to the Big Ten. Indiana and Ohio State were tied with 6 current NBA players. Now, that'll probably change here soon with the drafting of Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino. But does Cody Zeller stay in the league? Does Victor obviously most likely will. But if they do, then that'd move Indiana to having 8 current players in the league, which would be the most in the Big Ten. Look at Indiana's results over the last 10 years as a program. Not good, but yet they have the most players in the NBA. And when you think of Indiana, you don't think of NBA type players. But that shows you that's the type of talent that has actually been there. And, we talked about Tom Crean a minute ago. You got to give him credit because most of them are his players.
All but 2.
3. Well, Juwan Morgan's not. Yeah, it is all but two, because Juwan Morgan, I don't think is. Well, that was his.
He's
anyway.
Technically a Crean recruit, so that's
he's a Crean.
Crean
He's a
umbrella.
Crean player. He's a Crean player. Now he counts as a Crean player. He found him. Except for Eric Gordon and Romeo Langford.
Romeo.
They're all his players. So he knew how to find talent. And Victor Oladipo, he came here as a 3-star player. Left.
OG Anunoby came as a 2-star player.
OG Anunoby came only because Tom Crean had to ask somebody who's that guy and get a name at a camp somewhere, because he wasn't even listed on the camp. That's absolutely. I don't know what Ike you're responding to, but whatever that is, that answer
They're
is
talking. Yeah, they're not talking about something that we want to get into.
Is that? Oh, that's not chronic.
There's people saying that Chronic Hoosier is
so and so.
Partner
yeah, that is absolutely
else.
That is absolutely not accurate.
Yeah, correct.
You can guarantee you that is not accurate. I can promise you that. That will. You should know better than that. You don't listen to this show enough. If you think that's if you put that,
Unless they're just yanking your chain.
Yeah, I promise you.
Somebody else saying Chronic Hoosier is artificial intelligence, which is pretty funny.
That
Obviously
is
not
that
true
would
as
be.
well.
You know what? I looked that up. I don't remember. Did Lindemann play in the league? I don't recall, and I don't have time to look it up, but I guess I do. But I don't remember. I don't remember that he did. I remember Kirk Hastings playing, but that was at the end of the Bob Knight era. Let's see. Yeah, well, there's a jersey wearing a Knicks jersey. So how about that? Maybe he did get in there for a minute. He lives in Bloomington. Big 7-footer. Of course. A lot of guys still here in the Bloomington area that played for
Lindemann,
Indiana.
by the way, he did 6 seasons in the NBA, 3 with the Pacers, 1 with the Spurs, 1 with the Trailblazers, and ended with the Knicks.
Nice run, dude. 6 years, that's a pension. That's a whole bunch of stuff. No, it's Kurt Hastings. Kurt Hastings would be a great Chronic Hoosier, let me tell you, but there is no disguising Kirk Hastings' voice. Let me tell you that. More specifically, there's no hiding Kirk Hastings' accent, his Tennessee accent. But Chronic will be on with us tomorrow, so you guys can continue guessing who he might be, but to no avail. I will not tell you. I will maintain my silence. But looking forward to tomorrow's program. Looking forward to talking to Chronic and Mike DeCourcy and K-Bro, man. We'll pick up all the College World Series as well. Recruiting, everything else that's going on. Anything else that you guys want to talk about, we'll pick it up.
I mean, the further in the week we go, I'm sure we'll see some of the fallout from West Virginia in that situation.
I would expect that to start happening today. I'm serious, because of the timing. There are not a lot of open spaces left.
Yeah.
Most teams have done what they're going to do. There's not a lot of Indianas. You've got Kentucky. Now, Kentucky, I can see them raiding West Virginia.
That's where Oscar Sheboy came from, as a matter of fact.
And, Kentucky could end up coming out smelling like a rose with all these openings and then all this happening. But Indiana has done a great job just being patient on filling this spot out. I have to give Mike Woodson a ton of credit for just being patient. It just shows the experience you need. Man, it was a great day. Great to be back. Great to have you guys back, lighting up the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Don't forget, if you're not able to follow us on radio, whether you're in Evansville on 97.7 The Ref, or the region, the voice of the region, WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, or over in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 AM, The Fan, and WBRO 89.9 in Marengo. You can jump on YouTube, hit subscribe, and the notifications toggle, and always the like button. We appreciate you guys. Give me a follow on Twitter as well. No problem. Appreciate you, Ike. And everybody that commented today, man, appreciate you guys. Great to have you back as well. So great to have John Boy back, John the producer. Speaking of which, for John, I'm Jim Coyle. Until tomorrow, I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.